Today we have an excellent session. It's titled our ECR webinar, Opportunities for Early Career Researchers in Horizon Europe and the Costs Programme. This is a part of our strategic goal is to support researchers' professional development and increase research capacity in Wales. And the Learner Society of Wales Early Career Researchers Network is delighted to be partnering with Welsh Higher Education Brussels in running this session. We are delighted to have one of our fellows chairing the webinar today, and I'm very pleased to introduce Professor Yvonne McDermott-Rees. Professor McDermott-Rees is Professor of Law at Swansea University, and she is Principal Investigator since 2022 on TRUE, which is the large interdisciplinary project selected for funding by the European Research Council and funded by UKRI. Without further ado, I'd like to hand over to Professor McDermott-Rees. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Barbara, and thank you all for joining us today. I'd like to start with just a special thanks to Barbara and also to Rian from the Learning Society of Wales for the great work in organising this event today in collaboration with Wales Higher Education Brussels. So, as Barbara said, I'm a Professor of Law at Swansea University, and I've been fortunate to have secured EU funding, and not just ERC, but also Marie Curie funding for my research in recent years. We really wanted this to be an opportunity to learn about the various opportunities for EU funding for researchers in Wales, particularly early career researchers, and to help navigate some of the landscape of figuring out those funding opportunities. So we're super grateful to our esteemed speakers for joining us today. Just a little bit about the format of the event. So we'll hear from each of our speakers for about 5 to 10 minutes, with a brief window after each speaker for any urgent questions that you might have. But from around 11 a.m, we'll have scope to discuss with all speakers then. So you might want to hold on to your questions until that group discussion, which won't be recorded. The only exception to this is that Judith has to leave us by 10:45. So if you do have any specific questions for Judith, please do ask them directly after her talk. Now, without further ado, let me introduce our first speaker. Catherine Marsden is a policy advisor with Welsh Higher Education Brussels. Catherine, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Yvonne. Good morning, everyone. I'm based in Brussels. Welsh Higher Education Brussels works to support all Welsh universities in their European engagement. So we work with Pro-Vice-Chancellors research leads in institutes and faculties, European officers, and also directly with researchers. So I've just got a couple of slides to share with you. Hopefully appearing shortly. Great. Okay. I'll just yeah, great, into the slide change. Right. I suppose the background to why we're talking about supporting early career researchers' engagement in Horizon Europe and other European funding programmes follows the difficulties of the last few years when the UK and Wales obviously were not associated to the Horizon Europe programme, and that has led to a specific decrease in UK participation in parts of the Horizon programme. And this table, which hopefully you're seeing because it's just disappeared from my view, the table shows that the UK in Horizon Europe compared to Horizon 2020 really dropped radically down the table of participants in the programme. So that's just try and get the slide back. Yeah. So that's kind of the background to why we are doing a lot of work to support Welsh researchers in engaging with Horizon Europe to try and increase our participation levels, particularly in Pillar 2, which is the area where there's collaborative research projects. And linked to that, obviously, we know that experienced researchers had European networks, had contacts, and could overcome some of the difficulties of the last few years. But for early career researchers, working out how to build networks, how to engage with programs, that has been more difficult. So that's another reason for our work to support today's webinar as well. And just I think one of the other colleagues is going to show the structure of Horizon Europe, just so everyone's aware of the structure of the programme, with Pillar 1, where European Research Council, Mary Skłodowska-Curie actions, which we're going to hear about in more detail shortly. And then Pillar 2, this area where there's collaborative research programmes, where universities and businesses, public authorities, other bodies come together in large-scale project applications focused on thematic areas of research. And then also Pillar 3, focusing more on innovation. And then finally from me, just some resources, and I'll put these in the chat as well. There are lots of resources out there at a UK level, also at a Welsh level, and then we're just about to have a whole series of events, mainly online, also in person in Brussels, linked to the Horizon Europe programme, with information on the 2025 calls, opportunities for brokerage events as well, which are a good way to find out who else is working in this area, in your area of research. But I'll put some more links in the chat as well, and these slides will be circulated later. We're very pleased to have worked with the Learned Society of Wales on this webinar, and we hope it will be very useful in providing you with information and support you in taking your steps into networking with European partners and considering participation and applying to funding calls in Europe. So thanks very much, and look forward to the discussion.
Thank you so much, Catherine. That was really useful. Does anyone have any questions for Catherine? As I said, we'll have a discussion part after all the presentations, but is there anything urgent? You can put it in the chat, or you can raise your hand. I'm not seeing anything. I suppose I had a question. So what is a brokerage event? What do they look like?
They take on different forms. The Commission runs some, and again, I can put some links in the chat, where people kind of join a platform which kind of opens for a period of time, and people can put information about their research, and it's kind of, you can filter by country as well, and it's in a broad thematic area. It may lead to a specific day when there's some kind of meetings and pitching opportunities, or it may kind of take place in the background that people can connect with each other, send each other messages, so that they take on slightly different formats, but it's a way of, I guess, trying to build little communities of people working in thematic areas, so they can see each other and try out some contacts.
That's really cool. Thanks so much. We might pick up on that theme of building your network in the discussion part afterwards. But let me turn now to our next speaker, who Mike has a question very quickly. So Mike asks, Catherine, could you elaborate on how Pillar 2 calls develop? So Mike is currently looking at the draft 2025 work plan, which has a lot of specific calls in it, and then 2026 is more broad and a bit vague, more vague. Will that become clearer later?
It will do, yes. The 2026 and 27 calls, I think, are going to be a 2-year programme of calls. 2025 is just 1 year for various reasons. One key document to look at, which I'll also put in the chat, is the strategic plan for Horizon Europe for 2025 to 27, which kind of sets out the direction of all the thematic clusters, and so that will give you an indication of, if it's not in the 2025 calls, it's going to be in the 2026-27 calls, but those calls for the next 2-year period are still under discussion and are not yet formalized. We have some drafts circulating, but they're not yet kind of fully formulated.
Fantastic. Thank you, Catherine, and thanks, Mike. So let me turn next to our next speaker, who is Judith Litjens. Judith is a policy advisor at the European Cooperation in Science and Technology Association, COST. Over to you, Judith. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Yvonne, and good morning, everyone. It's really a pleasure to be here and to present to you the opportunities that COST has to offer for researchers and young researchers in particular, because as you'll see during my presentation, there are specific opportunities that COST offers to young researchers, and we place particular emphasis on involving young researchers in the COST program, as you'll see. So let me just share my screen with you. You should be able to see it shortly. I'm trying to get into full screen mode. Yes. Okay, so there we go. So I have quite a few slides, but my intention is actually to go through the most important ones, to stick within my time frame that I've been given. And of course, the rest is, there's a lot of information on there that you can consult yourselves with links and everything. So I'm very happy for the slides to be shared with you afterwards. But I'm going to give you an introduction to COST. I'm going to explain to you what COST is, how you can get involved, and how we support young researchers. So first of all, COST, as Yvonne said, stands for European Cooperation in Science and Technology. We are an EU-funded program under Horizon Europe, and we provide opportunities for researchers and innovators across Europe to set up their own interdisciplinary and bottom-up research networks in Europe, but also beyond. So how do we do this? We place specific emphasis on excellence. That's a key criteria in our evaluation process. And we place particular emphasis on providing opportunities for young researchers and researchers based in what we call the ITC countries. And that's COST jargon for inclusiveness target countries. These are essentially the countries, the widening countries under Horizon Europe, which we'll see on the next slide. But first, I wanted to give you a bit of some basics, let's say, of the COST program. So as I mentioned, we're bottom up. We welcome applications from any field in science and technology. So we're really a completely bottom up program. We do not impose any topics. We welcome participation from all types of partners. As you can imagine, the research networks that we fund mainly consist of partners from universities, based at universities, but we also have quite a few partners from public organizations, NGOs, also SMEs and businesses, industry. As long as you're an individual affiliated to any type of legal entity anywhere in the world, you are eligible to participate in the COST program. I mentioned the bottom-up approach that we apply, and I should also mention a very important point is that we do not fund research itself. So COST funds the networking of nationally funded research activities, and we bring together a network of young and experienced researchers. This is an added value of the COST program, where young and experienced researchers work together in a rather big network. So people from all career stages come together to work on a topic of cross-cutting of their interest. And we welcome applications from all our 41 COST member countries, including the UK. We have a cooperating member, that is Israel. And as you see on the slide, we also have 14 near neighbor country members. And those are essentially the countries to the far east and far south of the European Union. And they can participate on exactly the same basis as the COST member countries. That doesn't mean that people based in other countries outside of Europe cannot participate. In fact, we have quite a large proportion of our networks that consist of academics, researchers, innovators based beyond Europe, in countries beyond Europe. But in those cases, most of the cases, those researchers have to bring their own funding. So if you're based in a COST member country, you are funded by COST. And finally, a very important and I think unique selling point is that COST actions are open by nature. And that means that and especially useful for young researchers who want to build a network, who want to see, who want to sort of join a network that is already ongoing. You can in fact find COST actions on our website by just typing in the keywords of the research that you're working on that are already ongoing, and you can join those cost actions. So in the first 3 years, cost actions run for 4 years. You can join in the first 3 years, even though you've not been involved from the beginning. I think it's very important to mention this because it is a very good way of getting involved with cost if you're not so familiar yet with the European funding landscape, let's say. Cost, we call it a stepping stone to EU funding, to the bigger EU funding schemes. We see that often, especially young researchers, get involved with cost if they really want to build their network, they want to meet people, work with, as I said, experienced researchers, extend their network in Europe. And we see that often later on, after the cost actions, those networks continue to apply together, or at least part of the network applies together for bigger EU funding schemes. And that's why we call cost a stepping stone to the bigger EU funding programs. 41 member countries you see on this slide. The ones in green are what we call the inclusiveness target countries. And special opportunities are possible for those countries in cost actions. We want to see a fairly high proportion of ITC countries involved in our networks. So how do they work, the cost actions? This is an example of a network at proposal stage. So you can see there's one main proposer and then there are 6 secondary proposers. So this is a minimum eligibility criteria. We'd like to see proposals of at least one main proposer and 6 secondary, so 7 in total, a group of 7, of which at least 50% have to be based in an ITC, an inclusiveness target country. That is an absolute eligibility criteria, so important to keep in mind. And in addition to that, of course, you can have many more proposers involved. This is really a minimum 7. I should explain that at proposal stage, we often see that in the applications, there are at least 15 proposers from different countries. You can have more proposers from the same country, by the way, and even from the same institution. That is not a problem at all. But just to let you know that the networks are in fact quite big. So already at proposal stage, you really need to consider a network of around 15 to 20 participants, proposers. And then we see that as you can join networks that are ongoing, the networks grow over time. At the moment, the average is about 32 participants from different countries, 32 different countries that are involved in cost actions. So in a cost action, I should say. So how does it work? So all cost actions are based on a memorandum of understanding, an MOU. This is the first document you would read if you're interested in getting involved in a running cost action. Memorandum of understanding outlines all the objectives and activities that an action will carry out in a period of 4 years, where we see a minimum of 7 countries. But as I mentioned, this is really a low number. In reality, you really have to strive for a higher number than this. And we fund research coordination and capacity building activities. And every cost action receives around 600,000 euros over the lifetime, over 4 years. This, I think, is probably the most important slide of the presentation because it shows you the networking tools. So what do we fund? We fund different types of meetings, starting with the management committee meeting. The management committee is the key decision-making body of a cost action. And they have several meetings a year, which is what we fund, working group meetings, including the costs for the venue and local organizer support. We fund as well as travel and subsistence for the members that participate in these meetings. Conferences organized by the action. The 2 most popular networking tools are training schools and short-term scientific missions that you see on the slide. And both of these are primarily aimed at young researchers. So involving young researchers, training them. The training school, to start with that, is always held at the premises of one of the cost action participants in the network, can also be a near neighbor country. And it is up to the action then to decide what do they want to teach during the training schools, how long should the training schools run for. We set only minimum and maximum at the level of the cost association. We say, okay, a training school has to be organized between, I think it's 3 and 15 working days. And the number of researchers and the type of researchers that are invited to apply to participate in a training school is also decided by the action themselves. So that means that you'll find calls for participation in training schools on the action website. Every cost action has a website where they list the training schools they're organizing, call for expression of interest, and the same goes for the short-term scientific missions, which is a mobility exercise. This is our most popular tool, and it means that we, for example, fund the exchange of, let's say, a young researcher based in Wales who would like to go and study in Paris for a limited amount of time to learn a new skill, be exposed to a new technique. It's very important that you justify the exchange by saying, okay, this kind of skill, this kind of new technique I can learn here in this host institution is not available at my own institutions. And that's why I would like to spend some time abroad and work with a professor, for example, that can support you during this time. The idea is that you put in a very short joint application. So between the young researcher and the professor at the host institution that accepts the young researcher for, let's say, 3 months. That's the average period of time that a short-term scientific mission is carried out for. You submit this to the cost action, who will then approve, hopefully, this application. So again, you will see the calls for short-term scientific missions on the individual action websites, and that's where you can find all the information. And every cost action organizes at least 4 of these STSMs per year, so there's really a lot of opportunities there. And you do not have to be involved as a young researcher with the cost action in order to be eligible to apply for these training schools and short-term scientific mission. I think that's important to mention as well. Finally, then the dissemination tool, we fund website, publications are funded through the cost association as well. And then the virtual networking tools that the virtual networking grants that we introduced during COVID are still running, but as you can imagine, are less popular now because people really prefer to meet face to face. And the idea is that these virtual networking grants replace some of the in-person meetings, some of the in-person tools. And as you can imagine, they're just less popular at the moment. Very quickly, the UK participation in costs, some key figures. I'm going to let you look at that for yourself. We see a consistently high participation from the UK. We're very happy to see, especially now that the UK is again associated to the framework program, which, by the way, had nothing to do with the UK's participation in costs, but it was often perceived at the time, you know, that participation could be difficult, perhaps from the UK, but now we see also in the last call a large increase in proposals from the UK, which we're very happy about. Unfortunately, I don't have the breakdown by Wales, but we definitely have quite a few Welsh researchers involved as well with cost actions. So there are 3 ways of getting involved with cost. First of all, as a participant of a running action, which I explained. You can also propose a new cost action. The next collection date is the 21st of October this year. We call it a collection date because you may in fact submit proposals all year round. But there's one collection date per year, and then it takes roughly 9 months for the evaluation process to be completed. For the last call, we had the most proposals we had ever received, more than 600, and the success rate as a result of that has decreased, unfortunately, a bit to 8%, which is why I'd like to emphasize that if you are not successful on your first attempt to submit a proposal for a cost action, do not worry. There is very often, you may resubmit as many times as possible. You get extensive comments from evaluators, and we often see that networks are then successful second or third attempt. But of course, if you're not familiar with cost, the ideal way to join is as a participant of a running action. What you do then is, first of all, you find the action in your field on the website, you read the MOU, browse the actions website, and I can recommend you to join as a working group participant. This is by far the easiest way to join a cost action. You have to fill out a very short form, submit it to the working group leader. and then your application is considered at the next management committee meeting where all the members are present. It's very rare that an application gets rejected. You just have to justify your idea for joining the action. What can you bring to the action? And you may also, of course, participate as a management committee member. In that case, you have to contact the COST national coordinator. So every COST member country has a national coordinator, the UK as well. You can find them on our website, and they are the only ones who can appoint you, who can get you into the management committee of a COST action. As a working group participant, this is not the case. You can join directly on our website where you can find all the relevant information and form. An ad hoc participant in COST action activity means that you would participate in a short-term scientific mission or as a trainee in a training school, which I explained earlier. You do not have to be part of a COST action in order to benefit from this participation. Those are the two main ways of participating as ad hoc, I should say. I'm sorry for going a bit quickly. I'm a bit conscious of the time. Just to highlight here that whenever you have a question on the open call procedure, you see the email address, please contact us, we do answer. There is also a link here that you can see on how to join the COST actions that were funded last year. There's a very nice overview of all the actions with links that were funded, and you can see very easily, very quickly, if there's an action in your field that you might like to join. Some very quick information here, some tips that you see if you want to submit a proposal to a COST action. There are two things I'd like to highlight here. There's no budget information in the proposal because that is discussed afterwards. And be careful about anonymity. This is something also a bit unique about COST. We do not want to see any names of participants, of proposers in the application. So be careful not to mention any names. It is in fact an eligibility criteria. It's because we want to evaluate proposals solely based on excellence and not on who's involved in the network. There is a very nice video if you'd like to reflect on what I've said. I know this is a lot of information, so if you'd like to see this again, there's a video that I would recommend that you can watch in 2 minutes to give you some tips on how to submit a successful COST proposal. And if I may very quickly just to highlight a few examples of initiatives that we have introduced very recently to boost opportunities for young researchers and innovators at COST. I'd like to highlight just 2 things here, and that is that we have introduced a new networking tool, which is called the Young Researcher Conference Grant, which you see at the bottom of the slide. And this is specifically a tool where we invite young researchers that are involved in the action to submit an application for attending a conference where they can present the work that they're doing. Of course, the work has to be related to the topic of the COST action, but there's funding available for attendance of conferences specifically for young researchers. We also have a KPI, which means a performance indicator where we have said now under Horizon Europe, okay, we want to see an increase in the participation of young researchers in our COST actions from 40 to 45%. We are currently at 42%, so we're getting there. But this is why, of course, we encourage the participation of young researchers in COST actions, and networks at proposal stage pay attention to this. And we want to see that every COST action reserves at least one leadership position for a young researcher. So that's something that I'd like to highlight. The statistics I'll leave for you to consider. Some participation of young researchers in COST actions. This is the state of play at the moment. And there's a very nice news article which highlights how COST supports young researchers and how they can participate in COST actions. So there's a link here in the slide that I invite you to have a look at. And that's it from me. Thank you very much for this opportunity, and I'm happy to answer questions. I will stop sharing, I think.
Thank you so much, Judith. Yes, that would be great. I can see that there are several questions in the chat all along the same line, which is basically, how does one define a young researcher?
Yeah, good question. Yes, I should have mentioned that. There's a specific cost definition that we apply for young researcher. It means a researcher has to be less than 40 years of age, so younger than 40.
Oh, that's a shame because yeah, we have obviously early career researchers who
Yes, I understand. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I had another question, which was if one wanted at some point in the future to propose a new cost action, is it beneficial for them to have participated in an existing cost action first, or because it's anonymous, then it doesn't really matter?
It is beneficial in the sense that you have more of an idea of how cost actions work. So I would recommend, if you're new to this, that you would join an action first and then submit a proposal, but you're very welcome to submit a proposal anyway and see how that goes. But there's nothing that would that the evaluators would look at. For example, there's absolutely no criterion that you have to have been involved or that it's better to have been involved, excuse me, in a cost action before.
Thank you.
I would like to, can I just say, because I know that one person, Janet, I think also came to the chat, say that's me out then. I understand the age criteria is definitely not ideal, but I would like to emphasize you can definitely participate as a non-young researcher in the same way. I mean, we may have some extra opportunities for young researchers, but any researcher is very welcome to participate in cost. Yeah.
Great. And then I don't see any other questions in the chat. I had another question, which is about the sort of disciplinary focus. So it says that it's open to all scientific and technological fields. So I wonder if you could help us with defining what that means.
Oh, it means entirely bottom up. It really, any field, any science, any S&T field, we welcome to see in proposals. We have no criteria for that at all. And we actually base our review panels that are formed after we receive all the proposals. So after the collection date, we base those, the expertise in those panels is based on the type of proposals that we receive. So they're not predefined, those review panels.
So just to be clear, so the humanities, for example, come under the definition of scientific?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we have plenty of humanities proposals. So in social sciences, yes.
Health research, there's
absolutely a lot of health research, yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Law, another
yes. Oh, everything.
Everything. Great. That's
any type of research that is carried out for peaceful purposes, we fund.
Great. And actually, it might be beneficial for people to do a little, I can see on the cost website, you can search existing cost networks, and then you get a sense of the kind of thing that has been the subject to cost.
Exactly.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Judith? I'm conscious that Judith has to leave us in around 10 minutes. So, yeah, I can't see any further questions, but I know, Judith, you've very kindly offered to share your slides. And
and also, if you have questions afterwards, I'm very happy to answer those by email, for example.
Thank you so much. That's really kind of you. Okay, so without further ado, let's move on to our next speaker, who's Ilse de Waele. Ilse is project advisor at the Research Executive Agency. Over to you, Ilse. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Yvonne. I will present my slides if that works. All right, so I work for the Research Executive Agency, as Yvonne said, and I am here to talk to you about another kind of opportunity, the MSc postdoctoral fellowships. So you've already seen this slide presented about what is Horizon Europe and the 3 pillars. So you've already had some information about pillar 2. We are in pillar 1, the pillar for excellent science. So excellence, as you imagine, is a thing that you you have heard already, and I think you'll hear a couple more times. It's a big focus for our actions. So the Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions, they fall under Pillar 1, Excellent Science. Inside these MSCA actions, we have 5 different ones. So we have the doctoral networks and staff exchanges, which my colleague will talk about later. We also have co-fund and MSCA and citizens. But me, I am here to promote and talk about the postdoctoral fellowships, support to excellent postdoctoral researchers. You see at the bottom of the slide, we have a very big budget available for all these actions combined, and the postdoctoral fellowships, we take quite a big chunk of them. So I'll come to that later, exactly how much we offer. So here you see the indicative budget for 2025. This year is 404 million euros. That's 338 million pounds, if I'm not mistaken. That is split into 2 big actions. 85% of our funding will go to European fellowships, and the rest will go to global fellowships. The distinction between those two is very big, and I will get to that in a little bit. There are 2 very distinct types of actions, but they're all called postdoctoral fellowships. Now, unfortunately, our call opening has been delayed a little bit due to the work program being a bit late. That's all technical. It should be available on the 8th of May. The call deadline, on the other hand, is very fixed. That is going to be the 10th of September, 2025, and I can even give you the exact time. It's 5 p.m. Brussels time, and that is a very hard deadline. So if you think about presenting a proposal to our call, it has to be submitted before that date. Now, on this slide, you also see the official definition of MSCA postdoctoral fellowships, that we aim to enhance the creative and innovative potential of researchers with a PhD who want to acquire new skills through advanced training, international, interdisciplinary, and intersectoral mobility. So that's a whole mouthful, but let's try and break that down so you see what the benefits are for you specifically, our main objectives, what we want from the postdoctoral fellowships. So you have 3 points and 3 points. The first 3 are for you as researchers, as people. Excuse me. The first one that we would like to go for is to increase research skills, transferable skills, competences of researchers that will give better employability and career prospects, but not only within academia. We're also looking at getting you involved in the private sector and any sector, really. So just with a better skill set, an increased skill set. We also want to forge new mindsets, new approaches to R&I through this international, intersectoral, and interdisciplinary collaboration. And of course, we want to see an enhanced networking and communication capacity, not only with scientific peers, because that's a whole different language than talking with the public, the general public. That is also a key skill that we want to enhance. So those 3 things is what we want to see come from a fellowship for the people involved. The last 3 that you see on the slide here, these are more, let's say, institutional and beyond. We want to see an alignment of working conditions for researchers in Europe. We want to make this a bit more attractive for researchers to go to a specific organization, and we want to boost our European R&I capacity just so we can compete and keep competing. We have excellent universities and excellent researchers in Europe. We should retain them. Now, as promised, what are these fellowships that we have on offer? So you have 2 options to go. The majority of our fellows take on a European fellowship. The budget is 85%, the distribution is 85%. What are these? It means that any researcher will, whether from a member state, an associated country, or elsewhere in the world, will come to a European host for 1 to 2 years and do research. The research topic is bottom up. You can choose anything you like in any scientific domain, going from economic sciences to astrophysics. Anything goes. We have no rules on that. So they come in and spend 2 years in a host of their choosing. The other scheme, our global fellowship, is a bit more complex. and lasts longer, as you can see from the slides. This one lasts 2 to 3 years. Why? Because we expect researchers that undertake such a fellowship to leave Europe for 1 to 2 years and go to a third country, for instance, the United States or Canada or anywhere in the world, to do 2 years, up to 2 years of research. And then we want those researchers to bring that knowledge and then bring that research back for a mandatory year extra back in Europe. So we kind of let you go out there in the world, fetch some knowledge and come back with it. So 2 very distinct schemes that you have to think about what is best for you if you choose to apply for that. And on both of these, you have the option to add on a non-academic placement at the end of the project for another 6 months. So you can extend your duration to 30 months or even 40 months of EU funding if you are successful. Now, there are, of course, wouldn't be us if there weren't any conditions associated to this. So participating organizations have to be member states or associated countries. The more complex part is about the researchers. So you as researchers, there are some conditions, and we unfortunately see that when a proposal is deemed ineligible or inadmissible, it's very often because of one of these 4 aspects. So make sure that you fulfill all 4 of these criteria before you consider applying for a grant. And what are these? So you have to have a PhD at call deadline or have had a successful defense. Your nationality can be any nationality if you want to go spend time in Europe, or if you want to go on a global fellowship, you have to be national or long-term resident of a member state or associated country. By the way, that does include the UK, I have to say that. Another rule that we have is that we also target young researcher, but we use a different definition than the cost action. For us, a young researcher means someone with up to 8 years of research experience after their PhD. Not 8 calendar years, mind you. We do take into account exceptions like career breaks, time that you were not working in research, parental leave, all those are excluded. So you can extend those 8 years quite significantly if needed. But it's a rule, you have to be a young researcher in that sense. And we also have a mobility rule in that you cannot have worked or lived in the country where you want to go to for more than a year in the 3 years before the call deadline. I'll skip the last bit because there are some very specifics. If you want to do Euratom research, that means nuclear research. If that is something you're interested in, carefully read all our guidance. I'll come back to the guidance at the end as well. So duration, as I've said, 2 years or 3 years are the rule, but you can choose. We have 2 more options that you can select. You don't have to, but you can take advantage of this. One is a secondment. It's something that means you will leave for a couple of months to any other university or entity worldwide, any sector, and that can be up to 1/3 of the duration of your project. So to gain more knowledge elsewhere for a short period of time. And another one is what I already mentioned in my initial slides about the non-academic placement. It's very optional, you don't have to do it. It does offer you 6 more months of funding, but it has to take place in Europe and at the end of the fellowship. So very strict conditions on that. Now, a few more specifics to mention. Resubmissions. So if proposal was submitted in 2024 and now has the same host, same researcher and the same topic, but scored less than 70, then unfortunately it cannot be submitted to the 2025 call. Can be submitted again in the 2026 call. We want this year of breathing space, if you will. UK, the good news is, associated again to Horizon Europe program, which means that any UK organization can host researchers, apply, receive funding under exactly the same conditions as everyone else in Europe. So welcome back, take advantage of it. And areas of research, I think I've already mentioned it. This is entirely bottom up. You choose your research. We don't impose anything. whatever you want to study, you are most welcome to submit a proposal to do so. Now, I also want to talk a little bit about funding levels, because I think that's a very relevant thing these days to know what will this pay me. So you'll see from this slide, there are two parts to it. The part on the right is fixed. This is an institutional contribution that goes to your host organization, is fixed. The part on the left are contributions for the recruited researcher. There are three categories here that matter: the living allowance, mobility allowance, and family allowance. Family allowance you can claim for if you are married in an equivalent relationship to marriage or have dependents, then you can have that allowance. Mobility allowance is paid to everyone because this is a mobility scheme. We want people to relocate. We should support that with some funding. And then there is the living allowance. The standard amount, as you can see here, is 5,990 euros. Now, that is the standard allowance. We do tag on a country correction coefficient to cover for cost of living. It's not the same in all countries. Now, for the UK, that's 141%, which means that this living allowance is increased quite significantly to about 8,400 euros or about 7,000 pounds. So that's per month. I have to say that is pre-deductions that are imposed by national legislation, of course. So you see, it's quite an attractive scheme if you can get funded by us. This is your salary for 3 years, 2 years, however long your proposed project would last for. Of course, we have lots and lots of guidance that I would recommend you read if you're interested in applying for this. The first would be go look on the Funding and Tenders portal, the first link on the page here, to the call page. This is where you'll find most of this information again, and importantly, the links to submit a proposal as soon as the call opens in early May. Another page that I would really recommend you check out is our page from the Research Executive Agency. We have published essential resources for applicants. So there is a guide for applicants. We have a guide about how to avoid common mistakes, self-assessment tools, other resources, guidelines, evaluation documents. It's all on our page. So if you read those, you're very well equipped to prepare a good proposal. Of course, you can also go through the work program, proposal templates, program guides, and the MSc website itself. And at the bottom of the screen, not because they're least important, of course, there are two links, the Research Inquiry Service and the National Contact Points. So both of these, they can bring you in contact with people. So people that will help you with your proposal. If you have an eligibility question, if you're stuck with interpreting something from the template, you can contact them and they will assist you with any question that you might have, and that is not already covered by any of the other documents. And I think with that, I am at the end of my presentation. So I really would say, if you are falling in our target group, consider submitting an application. It's a very popular scheme, very heavily subscribed, but also a very stable and prestigious scheme. So we are welcoming you with open arms in our scheme. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ilse. That was a really fantastic presentation and very informative. I've just supported an MSCA postdoctoral fellow, so it's a person who's going to come into Swansea University for 2 years from October. And I was really glad to hear you mention the salary, which is, I was quite surprised by this when we started to look at it, because essentially people who come in on these postdoctoral positions are on a professorial salary, if you look at our salary scale. So that's a huge benefit of the scheme, I think. So thank you for flagging that. And also the additional funding that's there for training and development is huge. You know, it's 12,000 a year. And another thing that I've come across is that as part of that, the institution, out of that money that's provided, has to pay the visa fees and the NHS surcharge. So that's a big thing, you know, because that otherwise is quite an expense for people moving to the UK.
It is. But and I have to say, we also revised quite recently our coefficients, the correction coefficients, because we do realize that the cost of living is going up. especially in the UK. So we revised those to be at a better rate, better reflecting the reality. So it should be attractive. We want people to consider this as a genuine option for 3 years of stability, and this should hopefully help them with a real rate. Yeah.
Great. So for those present, I suppose there are two options. One would be you might consider inviting someone into your institution to join your research team or your research group as an MSCA postdoctoral fellow, or you might, if you meet the eligibility criteria, think about going elsewhere, somewhere you haven't lived in. Is it the last 12 months?
The last 12 months in the past 3 years. So we are not that restrictive. You can go back and forth between a few countries if you want, if you've really taken a shine to one country. But yes, you can definitely envisage going somewhere else for a little while.
Great. Edward has a question in the chat, which is, would this fellowship support social research aimed at improving provisions / opportunities for underserved communities?
Absolutely. We have actually, that's one of the things that we look at, is how it can impact all levels of society. So that sounds like a perfect match. And yes, by all means, have a look at our guidance and consider it, because it sounds like a very good match. Yes.
Fabulous, thank you. And Kaleem has a question: how MSCA, how can it support staff already in the UK? Yeah, so that's an issue, isn't it? That if you're already in the UK and you want to stay in the UK, this scheme isn't for you.
No, this scheme wouldn't be, because we encourage mobility. We require mobility. So if you're already in the UK and you've been here for quite a while, then this scheme would not be it. Then it would be better if you, try to look at the other schemes that my colleague will present as well, because we have other ways to exchange and support researchers and non-researchers, but not the postdoctoral fellowships in this case, unfortunately.
And then Fabiana has a question: what about a person without affiliation? So someone who has just finished their PhD and won't be affiliated to that school soon. Can you say something about this?
Right. So in that case, then the key thing is to find an affiliation, to reach out through networking, existing networking, new networking, go to events. We also have on our portal page a way to match people up. Sometimes there are offers that are mentioned. So there are ways to get affiliated and get in touch with someone to continue doing your research. And the first place to start is then our portal page. Look at the offers that are listed there.
Yeah, or it might be that there's a research group somewhere in the continent that you're really familiar with their work and you think, wow, I'd love to be part of that group for a couple of years.
Reach out. You just reach out to them and go for it. Most of them by now are very familiar with the MSCA actions and the postdoctoral fellowships, because it's such a popular scheme. So if you come to them and say, look, I'm interested in maybe looking into a postdoctoral fellowship application, it's well received in general. So reach out, try.
And then one last question: is there any similar opportunities for more advanced researchers, so not early career researchers, who might want to do mobility of this nature?
Then that would be the staff exchanges, and that will be covered later on. That's for maybe more mature researchers.
Perfect, perfect. Well, that seems like a good segue then to introduce Emanuele. Thank you very much, Ilse.
You're welcome.
So Emanuele Volpi is the legal manager of the European Research Executive Agency, Unit A3. Over to you, Emanuele.
Thank you very much. So thank you for the opportunity. I will present two different schemes: doctoral networks and staff exchange. I'll try to be quick. I'm working in staff exchange, so I will have more information on this scheme rather than doctoral networks. But all the questions you may have, I will take note, and then I will forward them to the responsible service. Okay, so this is the first slide is just to place Marie Curie action under Horizon. We already discussed about that. So Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions are under excellent science in pillar 1. We can go ahead. So I will talk about now doctoral networks. So doctoral networks so I am now talking about multi-beneficiary grants, meaning that in order to participate, the proposal has to be submitted by at least 3 entities. So the budget indicative is 458 million. The call opening is on 28th of May 2025, and the call deadline is 25th of November 2025. Here you have kind of the aim of Marie Curie Doctoral Network is to create to create an environment to train creative, entrepreneurial, innovative, and resilient doctorate candidates that should be able to face current and future challenges, and to convert what they learn into the ideas into products and services for the development and competitiveness of the EU. So the next slide will be on the doctoral network objectives. The first three are related to the fellows, and the others are related to the entities participating in the project. So the main objectives for the fellow is to acquire new research and transferable skills and competences that should lead to improved employability, and career prospects. So the idea is to recruit and train doctoral candidates, allowing them to acquire new skills and to improve their employability and the possibility of being hired in the future. They participate to acquire new knowledge that will allow them to convert the ideas into products and service, to convert, and then to create and enhance the networking and communication capacity with scientific peers, and as well as with the general public. And the aim is to increase the impact of research and innovation activities in Europe. Then for the entities, what Doctoral Network aim to is to enhance the cooperation and the quality and the sustainability of the doctoral training and the supervision arrangement, meaning to create a network and a kind of high standards for the doctoral training and the supervision arrangement, to create and enhance the cooperation and transfer of knowledge between sectors and discipline, because this is open also to non-academic, so academic and non-academic entities, to increase the integration and training and research activities between the participating organization, and then of course boost the research and innovation capacity in EU, increasing the internalization and attractiveness of the EU research environment. We can pass to the next slide. Thank you. So here, we have, you can open all the three possibilities, because I will go here very quickly. There are three types of doctoral network. There is the standard doctoral network, the joint doctorates, and the industrial doctorates. All of them are similar, but with some differences. You see that mainly there are differences in the project duration. There are differences in some eligibility condition, and the possibility of doing secondments. In standard, the doctoral network is up to 1/3, while for the others there is no limitation, etc. But I won't go through all these conditions because the time is not enough to do so. So I will then. I'm very happy if the organizers will share the presentation. You can have a look, and in case you can ask and send me a question by email. So we can pass to the next slide. Thank you. So the eligibility condition for the proposal. So the proposal has to be submitted by at least 3 independent legal entities, each established in a different EU member states or as an associated country, with a condition of there must be minimum 1 beneficiary from an EU member state. So you cannot have all associated countries. For the beneficiaries, so we have different type of participating entities. We have beneficiaries and associated partners. The difference is that the beneficiary signs the grant and they can submit costs, while the associated partner do not sign the grant. They participate in the action and they cannot submit costs. The beneficiaries, so if you decide to participate as beneficiary, you must recruit at least 1 doctoral candidate. This means that you have to host at your own premises and supervise the recruited researcher, or you can use associated partners linked to the beneficiaries to do so. The associated partner linked to a beneficiary is a specific kind of third party, meaning is an entity which has long-standing collaboration with beneficiary, and it will collaborate with the beneficiary to implement the action by landing the premises and so hosting the doctoral candidate and supervising the research. One eligibility condition of the proposal is that no more than 40% of the EU contribution may be allocated to beneficiaries established in the same country or to a single international organization. And then you will see, if you have a look at the work program and to the distinction between the three types of doctoral networks, there are specific eligibility conditions for industrial doctorates and joint doctorates. Then another eligibility condition is that the resubmission is restricted to proposal that scored more than 80% in previous call 2024. Of course, for 2026, the proposal that has been submitted in 2024 can be resubmitted in the call 2026. So we can pass to the eligibility of fellows. Thank you very much. So the fellow eligible for the doctoral networks, the researcher must be a doctoral candidate, meaning that is not already in possession of a doctoral degree at the date of the recruitment. One other condition is that the recruitment should be done following an open, merit-based and transparent procedure. This is very important because this is one of the aim of the scheme, is to foster this policy all around Europe to recruit through this open and merit-based process. The researcher then must be enrolled in a doctoral program in at least one EU member state or associated country. And the researcher can be of any nationality. We don't have any restriction, but we have the mobility rule, as in postdoctoral fellowship. The fellow must not have resided or carried out his main activities, her main activity in the country of the recruiting beneficiary for more than 12 months in the 3 years immediately before the recruitment date. Then I will talk quickly about the funding. As you see, the structure is the same. We have a fixed amount for the institution for each month, which is 1,600 for research training and networking contribution and 1,200 for management and direct contribution. Then there is a living allowance that is subject to the country correction coefficient, in the sense that this is an amount that then changes on the basis of the country where you will where the fellow will be recruited and will be supervised and will do his doctoral training. There is a mobility allowance of 710 euro for each month, because we are a mobility scheme. And then, if applicable, there is a family allowance up to 660. And then you'll see there is, in certain occasions, there are long-term leave if you need for some specific issue affecting the fellow, and special need allowance, which is for a researcher with special needs. You can require this aside the grant. The call is always open, and you will find all the information on the work program. And on the basis of the let's say special need of the fellow, there are predefined categories of costs. This you will see in the work program. So I pass quickly to staff exchange. That is my cup of tea. So staff exchange is a pure mobility scheme that is dedicated to staff. So in order to participate, we require that the condition of staff. This is why the budget is also less important than the other schemes, because we're not paying salaries. We're just contributing to the mobility of the fellows around Europe and around the world. So the indicative budget is 82 million euros. The call opening is today. So I just received the message that the call is now open and will close the 8th of October 2025. So the aim of Marie Curie Staff Exchange is to promote intersectoral, international, interdisciplinary collaboration via mobility and enhance this knowledge sharing and the idea at all stages of the innovation chain. What does it mean in concrete? So we can proceed to the next slide. The objectives of Marie Curie Staff Exchange is the international, intersectoral, and interdisciplinary mobility of research and innovation staff via secondments, meaning that the consortium will have to plan secondments between them inside Europe or outside Europe. We will see then the type of entity that can participate. And the research should be done via mobility. So the fellow should move from his country of employment to one of the members of the consortium to carry out research and bring back what he learned to then transfer his knowledge to his sending entity. And so this will allow, of course, the transfer of knowledge between the participating organizations, and will enhance the collaboration between academic and non-academic sectors, because, as you will see, the possibility of having intra-sectorial secondment is limited. The aim in staff exchange is, when you are at the European level, so doing secondment inside Europe, is to be intersectoral. So a person from academia should go to an entity which is non-academic. And then finally, the aim is to enhance the cooperation across the globe. What are the key features of staff exchange? Please, we can go to the next slide. So, as all the Marie Curie action is a bottom-up, meaning that we don't predefine the objectives and the results that we want. This is up to the fellows and the institutions that are participating in our grants to define their own objectives and aims, and then will be assessed by different scientific panels, but everything can be accepted as a staff exchange action. We have the top-up allowance, which is 5,010 euros, which 2,300 goes to the organization and 2,710, sorry for this 10 has been added lately, it's for the staff. What does it mean? That the staff must receive this full amount that has to be used for the mobility and accommodation of the fellow during the secondments. The secondments are from a minimum of 1 month to be eligible to a maximum of 12 months per staff member, and can be of 3 natures, so interdisciplinary, intersectoral, or international. The duration of staff exchange project is 4 years, and the maximum person month that can be founded for project is 360. This means that the founded secondments cannot be more than 360, but then if you have non-founded secondment, meaning secondments performed by entities established in a third country which is not eligible for founding, you can add them to this 360. So we can go to the next slide. Who can participate in Marie Curie staff exchange projects? The consortium has to be so the proposal has to be submitted by a consortium of minimum 3 legal entities in 3 different countries, 2 of which has to be established in a different EU member state or associated country, meaning that you can have a consortium composed by 2 European or associated country participants and an associated partner from a third country. It is open to entities in the academic sector or in the non-academic sector, and these are the rules for the minimum 3 entities. So if all the 3 entities are from Europe, then there must be at least 1 from a different sector, because as you see, as you will see, inside Europe, when you have only European consortia, there is a minimum of maximum of interdisciplinary, meaning in the same sector secondments, while the majority has to be between different sectors. And then if all 3 entities are from the same sector, then we must have a participant that is located in a third country outside Europe. This is because once the secondment passed to an international level, the condition of the sector does not apply. So meaning that if you are sending people or receiving people from outside Europe or to outside Europe to a third country, you can send it, for example, to university, you can send staff among them. There is no restriction in terms of sectors. So we can proceed to the eligibility then of the staff. This scheme is open to any type of staff involved in research and innovation activities. So the only condition is that the person is staff, and this depends on the national law, internal practice. The important is to have a kind of link that allows the the staff to be considered, the fellow to be considered as staff under national law, and it gives to the sending organization the necessary power in terms of supervision and control to oblige the fellow to respect the obligation in the grant agreement. So the type of staff can be researcher, administrative staff, managerial staff, or technical staff. The important is that the researcher is actively engaged in research and or innovation activities for at least 1 month prior to the first secondment. The researcher can be at any career stage, so there is no limitation of age. Each staff member must be seconded for a period of minimum 1 month. So if you don't reach the minimum 1 month, the secondment is not eligible and you won't be refunded. So the cost will not be paid. Up to 12 months for a fellow. So this means that one fellow, even if it's during the project lifetime, changes its affiliation from one entity to another, it still can be seconded only 12 months in the project. The staff, notwithstanding the type of contract, full-time or part-time, that has with the sending organization, during the secondment must be devoted full-time to the action, meaning that in certain situation, if you have a 75% or 50% part-time contract, you're obliged to sign a supplementary agreement which will allow you to work on a full-time basis during the secondment. And of course, your conditions cannot be worsened. So also for that period, all your remuneration that are paid from the sending institution, we're not paying salary, I remember, must be adapted to the full-time scheme pattern of working. And then after the secondment, this is very important, there is a mechanism of a return mechanism, because the person, once has been secondment and learn new skills, must come back to the sending organization and transfer the skill in order to maximize the impact of our scheme. So we can proceed to the next slide. I see that I'm a bit over my scheduled time, I'm sorry. There is the possibility, if you are doing secondments among member states or a specific country, so intra-European, to have 1/3 of the total secondment interdisciplinary, meaning from in the same sector. Interdisciplinary secondments integrates the aspect from 2 or more different scientific disciplines. And then you can see what is important is the scientific panels and the descriptors and keywords from proposal. This will allow the experts to evaluate the interdisciplinarity of the project. What is the type of secondment that we found? Please, you can pass to the next slide. Thank you. We have inside Europe, you see, is from academia to non-academia. A part is 1/3. And then to third country partners that are divided into low and medium income third country, which are eligible for funding. You have an annex to the work program where you can find the list of eligible third country for funding. So in this case, we found the outgoing secondments to third countries, and the incoming secondment from third countries. So we're paying also the secondments from third countries that are eligible for funding. While for the high income third country, let's say US, such a Canada, etc., they can participate in our project. So we will pay for the outgoing secondments from Europe to US, but then if the US wants to send people to Europe in the same scheme, they have to pay with their own resources to do so. And then last slide concerning the staff exchange is an explanation a bit more detailed of the founding that I already discussed before. So we can pass to the slide on the next slide, that is on the call. So the call has been opened today. And if you go on the participant EU funding and tender portal, you will find all the information with a set of FAQ that is attached to the call, with all the description of the templates and that you must use. And there is a guide for applicant that will help you and guide you through all the process of preparing and submitting the proposal. Then for what concerns the United Kingdom in Marie Curie doctoral network staff exchange, thank you. You can pass to the next slide. as of January 2024, the United Kingdom is associated, therefore meaning that you will be able to participate in staff exchange and doctoral network at the same condition as the EU member states or associated countries. For staff exchange, this means that they can be beneficiaries, because the distinction in staff exchange is that only beneficiary established in a EU or associated country can be beneficiaries, and the entities, the other entities, so third country entities, must be associated partner, meaning that they do not sign the grant, and their contribution, they cannot claim directly costs to the action, but for the eligible third country, as I said, the low and middle income third countries, their cost will be claimed via the beneficiary. So they are eligible for funding, and of course, it's up to the consortium to establish the mean, but to transfer this money to them. And then I would like to finish with my favorite quote of the resources and guidelines for the call. In this page, you will find all the link to postdoctoral fellowship call and to staff exchange call. Then our website of the European Research Executive Agency, and then all the other interesting link that also Ilse already explained. So very important, the last two, which are research inquiry services, where you can, during the preparation of a proposal, you can send all your questions, and they will send your question to the relevant service, and in this case to me, and I will reply. And then the national contact points, which is a very important network of contact points in the different member states and associated country that will have all the information to help you and guide you throughout the process of the preparation and submission of the proposal.
Thank you so much, Emanuele. That was,
thank you.
Very comprehensive. Thank you. I can see there's one question in the chat, and this actually came up a little bit to Ilse as well, on under what circumstances could someone do a sort of an exchange within the UK? So am I right in thinking that, for example, someone might be able to create a consortium of, let's say, one individual in Bangor University, one UK-based industry partner, one university in France, and one university in, I don't know, Belgium, and then that potentially could work?
Yes, that could, but the only problem is that as we are a European Union, and if there must be transnationality, in the sense that we are not we cannot found secondments inside the same country. So the only eligible secondments are either transnational or international. So let's say in this case, if you have a consortium of 3 entities, or let's say 4, one academic and non-academic, so 2 entities in UK, one in France and one in Italy, the UK can go to Italy and France, the France can go to Italy and UK, but there cannot be intersectoral. I mean, the UK cannot go to the UK.
The UK, okay.
Because we're paying for mobility and accommodation. So there must be physical mobility. And one other thing, the mobility must be effective. So you cannot perform the scheme remotely. You cannot stay in UK and do teleworking secondment in Italy, and no, you must move physically. The only situation is then once you are then in the country of the hosting institution, then if there is allowed to telework, you can follow the same pattern as the staff from the hosting institution, provided that this is in line with the type of activities. Because if you have to do lab activities, the testing in the laboratory, of course, you cannot do it from your hotel or from your bed and breakfast apartment. But if you have any other question, of course, we are.
I don't see any other questions for you in the chat just yet, Emanuele, but we do have a few minutes for all our speakers. And just before we stop recording, one thing I'm conscious that we haven't talked about yet is the ERC, the European Research Council. And I think particularly those in this group might be interested in ERC starting grants. Catherine, would you be able to give us just a very, very, very brief overview of the ERC funding?
Yes, thanks very much. Yes, the European Research Council, which was established, I think, back in 2007, is the kind of major European level Research Council funding bottom-up research across Europe, across all disciplines, anyone from any nationality and at a kind of any age point or in their career can apply to the ERC. There's a range of different ERC options, I guess, from starting grants, which may be of particular interest, as Professor Rees mentioned, to early career researchers. So those are focused on people at an earlier point in their research career. And then there's consolidator grants, perhaps for the next stage of your research career, and then advanced grants, which are kind of major grants to people at I suppose a relatively advanced point of their research careers. There's also synergy grants, a different type of option available, and also some proof of concept funding as well, linked to those different options. But it is very much focused on people's own ideas for their research and provides quite significant funding, several million euros usually across a period to support research activity. So it's a very major funding programme.
Thank you so much, Catherine. I guess maybe a couple of points I would add to that. Yes, thank you. Mike was just about to pick up on one of the points I mentioned. So one thing is the eligibility criteria. It's based on years post PhD, but one thing I know I personally have benefited from and others have is that it's quite generous. If you've taken maternity leave, you get an extra 18 months added on, and for most of us in the UK, we tend to take less than that for maternity leave. So that's something to keep an eye out on. Mike flags that sometimes if you've had time out. Yeah. I don't know. I think they do make an exception. I know, Ilse, you mentioned this earlier for time out of if you've been in industry. Is that correct, Ilse?
Yeah, that is correct.
Yeah. So I would check, Mike, with your research office. It might be that they need to get in touch with the ERC directly. But I know people who've sort of made the case for particular exceptions to be made, and that would strike me as something that you would still be eligible even if you've taken some time out.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you, because I was quite previously quite taken aback by that the rules appear to be extremely solid, and I was definitely too old. So yeah, okay, I will go and check. Thank you.
Keep an eye out. Yeah. The other good thing about the ERC grants is, compared to UKRI, is that they cover overheads. So whereas UKRI grants, it's 80% full economic cost. So there's a cost to the institution in supporting these kind of grants. These kind of European grants, because they cover overheads at a fixed rate, tend to be very attractive for institutions. That's something to bear in mind as well. Then the third thing I would say is, as Catherine said, really the criteria is excellent science. So we're quite used to, I think, when we're applying for ESRC or AHRC funding, in looking at the impact, what's the real world impact of this going to be? These very, lots of building in outreach and things like that in the projects, whereas ERC and Marie Curie, I think to an extent as well, it's about the excellence of the science is the key criteria. So it's the sort of blue sky research that's really prioritized. Thank you all so much for your time. And we're going to stop recording now so that people can jump in with questions if that's been a barrier to anyone's participation. Thank you, Barbara.